The air in Adrian Blackwell's private study was thick with tension. Veronica Sterling stood frozen near the mahogany desk, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her Chanel clutch. She'd been caught, and she knew it. Adrian's voice was cold, controlled, deadly. You bribed Nurse Patterson at Memorial Hospital. $50,000 to swap my son's DNA sample with someone else's. Veronica's porcelain face cracked just slightly. Adrian, I don't know what you're talking about. This is ridiculous. He slid a folder across the desk. Bank statements, text messages, security footage. I have 3 DNA tests, Veronica. 3 separate hospitals. Mercy General confirmed what I already knew in my heart. Caleb is my son. St. Luke's confirmed it. But Memorial Hospital, that test came back negative. Funny how that works when you pay someone to lie. Her mask shattered. You don't understand. That woman, that maid, she was going to take everything from you. From us. There was never an us, Adrian said, his jaw tight. And you tried to keep me from my son. My own flesh and blood. He's not yours. Veronica's voice rose, desperate now. He's some orphan she picked up. You're throwing away our future for some fantasy. Adrian stood, his 6'3" frame towering over her. Security is waiting outside. You have 1 hour to leave my property. If you ever come near my family again, I'll make sure you never work in this city, or any city, ever again. Veronica's face twisted with rage and humiliation. You'll regret this, Adrian. That boy will never be good enough for your world. And that maid? She's using you, just like everyone else. Get out. The door closed behind her with a finality that echoed through the room. But this story doesn't start here. This moment, this confrontation, this justice. It began 14 years ago with an act of desperation, a moment of courage, and a love that would change 3 lives forever. Before we dive into where it all began, welcome to our channel, whether you're a returning viewer or just discovering us for the first time. This story is about second chances, hidden truths, and the family we choose. If you enjoy compelling narratives that inspire and move you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Drop a comment below telling us what you think will happen next. The YouTube algorithm loves engagement, and it helps us reach more people who need to hear stories like this. Now, let's go back to where it all started. 14 years ago, Manhattan, New York. Adrian Blackwell wasn't always the composed billionaire who commanded boardrooms and turned startups into empires. At 22, he was hungry, ambitious, and falling in love with the wrong person. Her name was Natalie Reeves. She was 21, beautiful in that effortless way that made heads turn, and she had dreams that stretched far beyond the cramped Brooklyn apartment they shared. Adrian was building Blackwell Technologies from his laptop, fueled by ramen noodles and 3 hours of sleep. Natalie was working on her master's degree in art history, dreaming of curating exhibits in Paris, London, Tokyo. They were young, they were reckless, and when the pregnancy test came back positive, their world tilted off its axis. I can't do this, Natalie said, pacing their tiny living room. Her hand shook. Adrian, I can't be pregnant right now. I have the fellowship interview in Florence next month. I'm 21 years old. Adrian reached for her hand. We'll figure it out. I'm about to close the series of funding. We'll have money soon, real money. We can hire help. You can still go to Florence. You don't get it. Her voice cracked. If I have this baby, I'll never be Natalie Reeves, the curator. I'll be Natalie Reeves, Adrian Blackwell's baby mama. That's all anyone will ever see. The girl who got knocked up by the tech genius and rode his coattails. That's not true. It is true. Tears streamed down her face. I'll lose myself, Adrian. I'll disappear into your shadow, and I'll resent you. I'll resent this baby, and I don't want to be that person." They fought for weeks. Adrian begged. He promised. He pleaded. But Natalie's fear consumed her like wildfire. When she was 7 months pregnant, Adrian came home one night to find her sitting on their worn couch, staring at nothing. "I'll stay until the baby's born," she said quietly. "But then I'm leaving. I'm taking the fellowship. I can't be a mother, Adrian." "I'm sorry." He thought she meant adoption. He thought they'd find a good family, someone who desperately wanted a child. He started researching agencies, preparing himself for the heartbreak of letting go while keeping the door open for the future. But Natalie had other plans. 3 days after giving birth to a healthy baby boy at New York Presbyterian Hospital, she disappeared. Adrian woke up in the hospital recliner to find her bed empty. No note, no goodbye. Just her hospital bracelet on the nightstand and the baby sleeping in the nursery. He searched everywhere. Her phone was disconnected. Her parents in Oregon hadn't heard from her. The fellowship program confirmed she'd accepted the position and left for Italy. She was gone. And so was his son. Adrian spent 2 days frantically searching the hospital, talking to nurses, checking security footage. Then a nurse pulled him aside, her face pale. "Mr. Blackwell, I'm so sorry. Your son was discharged this morning." The mother signed him out. "What? Where did she take him?" The nurse's silence told him everything. He hired private investigators. He filed police reports. He searched for months, pouring money and resources into finding his child. But Natalie had vanished, and she'd taken their son with her. What Adrian didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Natalie never intended to keep the baby. In a moment of desperation and panic, terrified of being trapped, she'd made a choice that would haunt her forever. On a freezing February night in the Bronx, Natalie walked 3 blocks from the hospital to a quiet alley behind a closed restaurant. She wrapped the 3-day-old baby in the hospital blanket, kissed his forehead once, and placed him in a dumpster. Then she ran. She ran from her fear. She ran from her guilt. She ran from the life she didn't want and the person she was afraid of becoming. But she also ran from the tiny boy who would grow up without ever knowing her name. 20 minutes later, the baby's cries pierced the cold night air, and Jasmine Carter heard them. Jasmine Carter was 18 years old and exhausted. She'd worked a double shift cleaning offices in downtown Manhattan, and her feet ached in her worn sneakers as she trudged through the Bronx toward the bus stop. The February wind cut through her thin jacket, and she pulled it tighter, counting the dollars in her mind. Rent was due in 3 days. She was $40 short. Then she heard it. A cry, high-pitched, desperate, and far too fragile for the frozen night. Jasmine stopped. Her first thought was a cat, maybe an injured animal. But the sound came again, and her nursing instincts, the ones she'd learned from her grandmother before she passed, kicked in. She followed the sound to the alley, her heart pounding. The dumpster. The crying was coming from inside the dumpster. Oh my God! Her hands shook as she climbed onto a crate and peered inside. A baby. A newborn baby boy, wrapped in a thin hospital blanket, his tiny face red from crying, his lips tinged blue from the cold. Jasmine didn't think. She just acted. She pulled off her jacket, reached into the dumpster, and lifted the baby out. He was freezing, his little body trembling. She wrapped him in her jacket, held him against her chest, and ran. The nearest fire station was 4 blocks away. She burst through the doors, breathless and terrified. "Help! I found a baby! He was in a dumpster! He's freezing! Please help him!" The firefighters moved fast. Paramedics arrived within minutes. They checked the baby's vitals, warmed him up, and wrapped him in thermal blankets. He was dehydrated and hypothermic, but alive. A police officer took Jasmine's statement. She told them everything, where she found him, what time, what he was wearing. The hospital bracelet was still on his tiny wrist, but it had been torn, the name partially obscured. "You saved his life," the officer said. "If you hadn't found him when you did, he wouldn't have made it through the night." Jasmine looked at the baby through the window of the ambulance. His cries had stopped. He was sleeping now, peaceful and safe. "What happens to him?" she asked. "He'll go to the hospital, then child services. They'll try to find his parents. If they can't, he'll go into the foster system." Jasmine nodded, her throat tight. She gave them her contact information in case they needed anything else, then watched as the ambulance drove away. She thought about him every day. At work, scrubbing floors and emptying trash bins, she wondered if he was okay. If someone was holding him, if he was warm. At night, lying in her cramped studio apartment, she prayed for him. 2 weeks later, she went to the hospital and asked about him. A social worker told her he'd been transferred to a children's home in Queens. He was healthy, thriving even, but no one had claimed him. "Can I visit him?" The social worker hesitated. "You're not family. I'm the one who found him. I just want to make sure he's okay." Something in Jasmine's eyes must have softened the woman because she sighed and wrote down an address. "Saturday mornings. They allow visitors then." Jasmine went every Saturday. She took the bus from the Bronx to Queens, an hour and 20 minutes each way, just to spend 30 minutes holding a baby who wasn't hers. She named him Caleb in her heart, though he was listed as baby doe in the system. She sang to him. She read him stories. She watched him grow from a fragile newborn into a bright-eyed infant who smiled when he saw her. The caregivers at the children's home noticed. "You come every week," one of them said. "You really care about him." "I found him," Jasmine said simply. "I can't just forget him." Months turned into a year. Caleb learned to sit up, to babble, to laugh. Jasmine got promoted to a supervisor position at her cleaning company. She saved every extra dollar. She moved into a slightly bigger apartment in the Bronx, one with an actual bedroom. When Caleb was 2 years old, a caseworker approached her during one of her visits. "We've been watching you," the woman said. "You haven't missed a single Saturday in 2 years. You bring him clothes, toys, books. You're more present than most parents." Jasmine's heart stuttered. "I just want him to know someone cares. Have you ever thought about fostering? Maybe adopting?" Jasmine had thought about it. She'd thought about it every single day. But she was 20 years old, single, and barely making ends meet. "I don't know if I'm ready." The caseworker smiled gently. "I don't think anyone's ever really ready. But you've been showing up for this boy since the night you found him. That counts for something. It took another year. A year of classes, home visits, background checks and paperwork. A year of doubt and fear and hoping. But when Jasmine was 21 years old, she officially adopted Caleb. She brought him home to their small apartment in the Bronx, and for the first time in 3 years, she felt complete. Life wasn't easy. Jasmine worked long hours to provide for them both. She cleaned offices, apartment buildings, and luxury homes all over New York City. She worked nights and weekends when she could find childcare, but she never complained. Caleb was her son, her miracle, and she would have done anything for him. She read to him every night. She helped him with homework. She saved every penny for his school supplies and new shoes when he outgrew the old ones. Caleb grew up knowing he was adopted. Jasmine never hid it from him. "I found you when you needed someone," she told him. "And you found me when I needed someone too. We're a team, you and me." By the time Caleb was 14, he'd grown into a smart, kind, and thoughtful young man. He was tall for his age, with warm brown eyes and a quiet confidence that made people notice him. He loved reading, especially history and science. He wanted to be an engineer one day. Jasmine was proud of him in a way that made her chest ache. They didn't have much. Their apartment was small, their furniture second-hand. But they had each other, and for Jasmine that was everything. She never imagined that their quiet life was about to collide with the past she knew nothing about. Adrian Blackwell stood at the back of the auditorium at Lincoln Preparatory Academy, one of Manhattan's most prestigious private schools. He wasn't supposed to be here. His assistant had attended dozens of these charity events on his behalf, but today something had pulled him here personally. Maybe it was the restlessness he'd been feeling lately, the gnawing sense that something was missing from his perfectly curated life. Or maybe it was the fact that this school specifically requested his presence for their new STEM scholarship program, an initiative he'd quietly funded for students from underserved communities. The principal was giving a speech about opportunity and education. Adrian's mind wandered. He checked his watch. He had a board meeting in an hour. Then a student walked onto the stage to accept a scholarship award. Adrian's world stopped. The boy was 14, maybe 15, tall, with warm brown eyes and a shy smile as he accepted the certificate. He wore a second-hand blazer that was slightly too big for him, and his tie was crooked. But none of that mattered, because Adrian was looking at Natalie. Not exactly, but the resemblance was unmistakable. The shape of the boy's eyes, the curve of his jaw, the way he smiled, nervous but genuine. It was like looking at a ghost. Adrian's heart hammered in his chest. He stood frozen as the boy gave a short speech, thanking the donors and his mother for working so hard to give him opportunities. "My mom always says that hard work and kindness matter more than where you come from," the boy said. His voice was steady, mature beyond his years. "She's taught me that every day. I wouldn't be here without her." The audience applauded. The boy stepped off the stage and disappeared into the crowd of students and parents. Adrian moved without thinking. He pushed through the crowd, his eyes searching. He had to see the boy again. He had to be sure he wasn't imagining things. He found him near the refreshments table, standing next to a woman in a simple black dress. She was petite, with natural curls pulled back in a neat bun, and she was laughing at something the boy said. Adrian approached slowly, his mind racing. He couldn't just walk up and demand answers. He had to be smart about this. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos inside him. "I just wanted to congratulate your son." His speech was very moving. The woman turned, and Adrian saw her up close for the first time. She was beautiful in an understated way. No makeup, no expensive jewelry, just clear brown eyes and a warm smile. "Thank you," she said. "That means a lot. I'm Jasmine Carter. This is my son, Caleb." Caleb extended his hand politely. "Nice to meet you, sir." Adrian shook his hand, and the world tilted again. The boy's grip was firm, confident, and his eyes, those eyes were so familiar it hurt. "Adrian Blackwell," he said. "I'm one of the donors for the STEM program." Jasmine's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, wow. Thank you so much for what you're doing for these kids. Caleb's been dreaming about this program for months." "It's my pleasure," Adrian said, his voice tight. "Caleb, what do you want to study?" "Engineering," Caleb said, his face lighting up. "Mechanical engineering, maybe aerospace. I want to build things that matter." They talked for a few more minutes. Adrian asked careful, casual questions. Where did Caleb go to school before this? How long had they lived in New York? What did Jasmine do for work? She answered everything openly. She was a housekeeper, working for several families across Manhattan. Caleb had been accepted to Lincoln Prep on a full scholarship because of his grades. They lived in the Bronx. She didn't mention adoption. She didn't mention finding him in a dumpster. And Adrian didn't ask. But he watched. He watched the way she touched Caleb's shoulder with quiet pride. The way Caleb leaned into her with easy affection. The way they moved around each other like a team, like they'd been doing this for years. When the event ended, Adrian shook their hands again and watched them leave. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Marcus, I need you to look into someone for me. Jasmine Carter, lives in the Bronx, works as a housekeeper. And I need everything you can find on her son, Caleb, 14 years old. I need to know where he came from." He ended the call and stood alone in the empty auditorium. 14 years. He'd spent 14 years searching, grieving, wondering. And now, standing in front of him, was a boy who might be the son he'd lost. But he couldn't act rashly. He couldn't storm into their lives without proof. If he was wrong, he'd destroy an innocent woman and her child. If he was right? Adrian closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. If he was right, everything was about to change. For the next 3 weeks, Adrian became a ghost. He didn't hire private investigators to dig into Jasmine's past. He didn't demand medical records or run illegal background checks. Instead, he watched. From a distance, always careful, always respectful, he observed the life his son might be living. He started with Caleb's school. Lincoln Prep had security cameras, and Adrian had access to the footage through his partnership with the scholarship program. He watched Caleb arrive every morning, usually by subway, always on time. He watched him sit alone through the camera feed as Caleb helped a younger student pick up books that had spilled from her. Backpack. The girl was clearly embarrassed, close to tears. Caleb knelt down, gathered every book carefully, and said something that made her smile. Then he walked her to her next class. Adrian's chest tightened. That kindness, it wasn't learned from Natalie. She'd been many things, but selfless wasn't one of them. He watched Jasmine too. She worked for 3 different families across Manhattan and the Upper East Side. Adrian followed her one morning, keeping his distance as she took the subway from the Bronx to a brownstone on East 78th Street. He watched her enter through the service entrance at 7 in the morning, carrying cleaning supplies. 6 hours later she left, her shoulders slightly stooped from exhaustion. She didn't stop to rest. She took another subway to a second job in Midtown, cleaning an office building. She worked until 6 in the evening, then she rushed to Lincoln Prep to pick up Caleb from his after-school robotics club. Adrian was waiting in his car across the street, hidden behind tinted windows. He watched Caleb run down the steps, his backpack bouncing, his face lighting up when he saw his mother. Jasmine hugged him tight, and they walked to the subway together, talking and laughing. Adrian followed them home. Their building in the Bronx was old, the paint peeling on the front steps. The neighborhood wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't easy either. Jasmine and Caleb climbed 4 flights of stairs to a small apartment on the top floor. Through the window, Adrian felt guilty for this, but he had to know he could see inside. The apartment was tiny, 1 bedroom probably, a small living room with a worn couch. But it was clean, meticulously clean. There were books on the shelves, a small desk in the corner where Caleb did homework, and photos on the walls. Photos of the 2 of them. Birthdays, school events, trips to the park. Jasmine cooked dinner while Caleb worked on homework. They ate together at a small table, talking about his day. She asked about his classes, his friends, his projects. She listened like every word mattered. After dinner, Caleb washed the dishes without being asked. Jasmine sat on the couch, rubbing her feet, exhaustion written all over her face. Caleb brought her a glass of water and sat beside her. They watched something on an old TV, Caleb's head resting on her shoulder. Adrian sat in his car, watching this simple, beautiful life, and felt something crack inside him. This woman, this stranger, had given his son everything Adrian had wanted to give him. Safety, love, stability. She'd worked herself to the bone to make sure Caleb had opportunities, education, and a future. She'd saved him, and Adrian didn't even know if Caleb was his. The next day, Adrian called Marcus. "I need you to find out everything you can about Jasmine Carter's adoption of Caleb. Legal records, where he came from, any medical history. But be discreet. I don't want her to know we're looking." Marcus called back 2 days later. She adopted him when he was 3 years old. He was found abandoned as a newborn in the Bronx. No identification, no parents. He was placed in foster care, then a children's home. Jasmine visited him every week for 3 years before she adopted him. By all accounts, she's been a model parent. No red flags, no issues. Just a woman who found a baby and decided to give him a life. Adrian closed his eyes. Where was he found? in an alley, February 14th, 14 years ago. 3 days after he was born. Adrian's breath caught. February 14th. 3 days after Natalie gave birth. It was him. It had to be him. But Adrian couldn't just show up and demand a DNA test. He couldn't rip apart their lives without knowing for sure. And even if Caleb was his son, what right did he have to disrupt the only family the boy had ever known? So Adrian did the only thing he could think of. He decided to become part of their lives. He reached out to Jasmine through one of his staffing agencies. The message was simple, professional, and carefully crafted. Miss Carter, your name was referred to me by a colleague who spoke highly of your work ethic and attention to detail. I'm currently seeking a housekeeper for my private residence in Manhattan. The position offers competitive pay, flexible hours, and accommodation on-site if needed. If you're interested, please contact my assistant to schedule an interview. Jasmine called the next day. Adrian's assistant conducted the initial interview. Jasmine was polite, professional, and honest. She explained that she had a teenage son and would need to make sure he could stay with her or nearby if the position required long hours. That won't be a problem, the assistant said, following Adrian's exact instructions. Mr. Blackwell's estate has guest accommodations. Your son would be welcome to stay there, and we can arrange for his commute to school. Jasmine hesitated. I don't want to be a burden. You wouldn't be. Mr. Blackwell values family. He understands the importance of keeping loved ones close. 2 days later, Jasmine met Adrian in person. She sat across from him in his penthouse office, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She was nervous. He could see it in the way she glanced around the room, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture. But she didn't let it show in her voice. Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Blackwell, she said. I promise I'll work hard. I just need to make sure my son is taken care of. Adrian nodded, keeping his expression neutral. Tell me about him. Jasmine's face softened instantly. His name is Caleb. He's 14. He's smart, kind, and he works harder than anyone I know. He's been accepted to Lincoln Prep on a full scholarship, and he wants to be an engineer. It's the best thing I've ever done, Jasmine said simply. I found him when he was just a baby. No one else wanted him, but I couldn't let him go. He's my whole world. Adrian's throat tightened. He had to look away. The position is yours if you want it, he said. You and Caleb can move into the guest house on my estate. It's fully furnished, private, and close to the main house. I'll arrange for transportation to his school. You'll have weekends off, and your salary will be more than enough to cover any expenses. Jasmine stared at him, her eyes wide. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Adrian said gently. You've worked hard enough. Let me make it a little easier. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed. Thank you. You have no idea what this means to us. Adrian did know. He knew exactly what it meant. It meant he was about to bring his son home. Jasmine and Caleb moved into the guest house on Adrian Blackwell's estate 3 weeks later. The estate was in Greenwich, Connecticut, a sprawling 20-acre property with manicured lawns, a private lake, and a main house that looked like something out of a magazine. The guest house, where Jasmine and Caleb would live, was tucked behind a grove of oak trees. It was small by estate standards, but enormous compared to their Bronx apartment. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a cozy living room with a fireplace, and windows that overlooked the lake. Caleb stood in the doorway, his mouth hanging open. Mom, are you sure this is real? Jasmine laughed, but her voice was shaky. I think so, baby. I really think so. They spent the first day unpacking their few belongings. Caleb claimed the bedroom with the window seat, and Jasmine took the smaller room next to the kitchen. By evening, they'd settled in as much as they could, though the space still felt too big, too perfect. Do you think Mr. Blackwell is nice? Caleb asked over dinner. They were sitting at the small dining table, eating takeout because Jasmine hadn't had time to stock the kitchen yet. "He seems nice," Jasmine said carefully. "He gave us this opportunity. That counts for something." Jasmine reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "We're more than staff, Caleb. We're people, and don't you forget that." The next morning, Jasmine reported to the main house for her first day of work. Adrian met her at the side entrance, dressed casually in dark jeans and a fitted sweater. He looked different than he had in the office, less intimidating, more human. "Good morning, Jasmine," he said with a slight smile. "I'll give you a quick tour and introduce you to the rest of the staff." There were 4 other people working on the estate. Margaret, the head housekeeper, was a stern woman in her 60s who'd worked for Adrian's family for decades. There was David, the groundskeeper, Sophia, the cook, and Paul, Adrian's personal assistant who managed schedules and logistics. And then there was Veronica Sterling. Jasmine met her in the main sitting room. Veronica was draped across a velvet chaise lounge like a Renaissance painting, scrolling through her phone. She was beautiful in the way that came from money: perfect skin, perfect hair, perfect clothes. Her diamond bracelet probably cost more than Jasmine's entire life savings. "Oh," Veronica said, glancing up. Her tone was pleasant enough, but her eyes were cold. "You must be the new housekeeper." "Jasmine Carter," Jasmine said, extending her hand. Veronica didn't take it. She just smiled. "How sweet. Adrian loves his little charity projects." Adrian's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. "Veronica is a frequent guest here. You'll see her around." Veronica's smile widened. "I'm much more than a guest, darling. Adrian and I have a very special relationship, don't we, Adrian?" Adrian ignored her. "Let me show you the rest of the house, Jasmine." As they walked away, Jasmine glanced back and caught Veronica watching her with an expression that made her skin crawl. The work itself wasn't difficult. Adrian's home was pristine, and he didn't make many messes. Jasmine's main responsibilities were keeping the common areas clean, managing laundry, and helping Sophia with meal prep when needed. Adrian was rarely home during the day. He spent most of his time at his office in Manhattan, so Jasmine worked quietly, efficiently, and tried to stay out of everyone's way. But she couldn't avoid Veronica. Veronica had a talent for appearing whenever Jasmine was working. She'd lean against doorways, watching with a smirk as Jasmine scrubbed floors or folded linens. "You're very thorough," Veronica said one afternoon, her voice dripping with condescension. "I can see why Adrian hired you. He appreciates hard workers. It's very noble of him, really, taking in people who have nothing." Jasmine didn't respond. She just kept folding towels. "Where did you say you were from again?" Veronica continued. "The Bronx? How quaint. I'm sure Caleb must be thrilled to be here. A boy from the projects, living in a mansion. It's like a fairy tale." Jasmine's hand stilled. She looked up, her voice calm but firm. "My son earned his place at Lincoln Prep through hard work and intelligence. We didn't ask for charity. We earned this." Veronica's smile didn't falter. "Of course you did, sweetheart." Over the following weeks, Jasmine noticed something strange. Adrian was around, more than she expected. He worked from home some days, and when he did, he'd wander into the kitchen while she was cleaning, or stop by the guest house to ask if she and Caleb needed anything. He was polite, professional, but there was something in his eyes, something searching, almost hesitant, that Jasmine couldn't quite name. "Hi, Mr. Blackwell. Hey, Caleb. I was wondering if you'd like to join me for dinner tonight. Your mom, too, of course. Sophia made way too much food, and I hate eating alone." Caleb glanced at Jasmine, who was equally surprised. Sure," Caleb said. "That'd be cool." They ate in the main house's dining room, a massive space with a chandelier and a table that could seat 20. It felt absurd for just the three of them, but Adrian didn't seem to notice. He asked Caleb about school, about his robotics project, about his plans for college. Caleb lit up, talking about his ideas for building a solar-powered water filtration system for communities without clean water. Adrian listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. "That's incredible, Caleb. Have you thought about applying for the Siemens competition? It's a huge opportunity for young engineers." Caleb's eyes widened. "I've heard of it, but I didn't think I had a shot." "You absolutely have a shot," Adrian said. "I'd be happy to help you with your application if you'd like." Jasmine watched the exchange, her heart swelling and aching at the same time. Caleb had never had this, a man who took him seriously, who saw his potential, who cared. After dinner, as they walked back to the guest house, Caleb was buzzing with excitement. "Did you see how he talked to me, Mom? Like I actually mattered. Like my ideas were real." Jasmine smiled, but something in her chest tightened. "You've always mattered, baby." "I know, but it's different when someone like him believes in you." That night, lying in bed, Jasmine stared at the ceiling and wondered why a billionaire would care so much about a housekeeper's son. If you're enjoying the story so far, please like and subscribe so that you don't miss another video. Also comment where you're watching from so we see how far our family is growing. Housekeeper's son. The staff noticed it first. Margaret cornered Jasmine in the laundry room 3 weeks after she'd started. The older woman folded a linen napkin with sharp, precise movements. Her eyes narrowed. "He's different with you," Margaret said without preamble. Jasmine looked up from the washing machine. "I'm sorry?" "Mr. Blackwell, I've worked for this family for 32 years. I knew his father, God rest his soul. I've seen Adrian grow from a boy into a man, and I've never seen him act the way he does around you and your son." Jasmine's stomach tightened. "I don't know what you mean. I just work here." Margaret's expression softened slightly. "He smiles now. Real smiles. Not those corporate ones he uses for business dinners. He comes home early to have dinner with you both. He asks about Caleb's day like he genuinely cares. In 32 years, I've never seen Adrian Blackwell care about anyone the way he's starting to care about your family." "We're just grateful for the opportunity," Jasmine said quietly. "I'm not criticizing you, dear. I'm warning you." Margaret's voice dropped. "Veronica has noticed too. And that woman doesn't take kindly to competition." "Competition?" Jasmine shook her head. "I'm not competing for anything. I'm his housekeeper." Margaret gave her a long look. "If you say so." But Margaret was right. Everyone was noticing. David, the groundskeeper, started greeting Jasmine warmly every morning, asking about Caleb's school projects. Sophia began setting aside extra portions of dinner, insisting Jasmine take them home for her and Caleb. Even Paul, Adrian's assistant, treated her with a level of respect that seemed unusual for household staff. And Veronica's hostility escalated. It started small. Veronica would accidentally spill coffee on surfaces Jasmine had just cleaned. She'd leave messes in rooms she knew Jasmine would have to deal with. She'd make snide comments about Jasmine's clothes, her accent, her background. "Did you grow up in the Bronx?" Veronica asked one afternoon, her voice sickly sweet. She was lounging in the library while Jasmine dusted shelves. "I've heard it's very colourful there. Lots of diversity. Not like Greenwich, of course." Jasmine kept her voice even. "It's home." "Of course it is." Veronica examined her manicured nails. "I'm sure Caleb must feel so out of place at Lincoln Prep. All those wealthy children. He must be the scholarship kid everyone feels sorry for." "I'm sure Adrian's special attention helps. He's always had a soft spot for charity cases." Veronica's eyes glittered with malice. "But you should know, Jasmine. Adrian and I have been together for almost a year. We're very serious." So whatever little fantasy you're building in your head about you and your son fitting into his life permanently, it's just that, a fantasy. Jasmine turned to face her fully. I'm not building any fantasy. I'm working to provide for my son. That's all good, Veronica said, standing. She smoothed her designer dress and walked to the door. As long as we understand each other. But despite Veronica's threats, the connection between Adrian, Jasmine, and Caleb continued to grow. Adrian started joining them for breakfast on weekends. He'd show up at the guest house with pastries from a local bakery, and they'd eat together on the small porch overlooking the lake. He taught Caleb chess, spending hours explaining strategies and laughing when Caleb beat him for the first time. You're a natural, Adrian said, studying the board with mock seriousness. I'm going to have to actually try now. Caleb grinned. You weren't trying before? I was letting you win. Liar. Adrian laughed, and Jasmine watched from the doorway, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. One Saturday afternoon, Adrian invited them both to tour his company headquarters in Manhattan. Caleb was beside himself with excitement. They spent the day exploring Blackwell Technologies, the research labs, the engineering departments, the innovation center where prototypes of new technologies were being developed. Caleb asked a million questions, and Adrian answered every single one with patience and genuine enthusiasm. He introduced Caleb to his lead engineers, who treated the teenager like a colleague rather than a child. You've got a bright kid, one of the engineers told Jasmine. He asks the right questions. That's rare, Jasmine beamed with pride. On the drive back to Greenwich, Caleb fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted and happy. Adrian glanced at him in the rearview mirror, something soft and unreadable crossing his face. Thank you for today, Jasmine said quietly. You didn't have to do all that. I wanted to, Adrian said. He deserves to see what's possible. He deserves to know that his dreams aren't just dreams. Jasmine studied his profile in the dim light of the car. Why are you doing this? Really? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Because I see something in him, something special, and I see how hard you've worked to give him every opportunity. That matters to me. But why? Adrian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Maybe because I know what it's like to lose something precious. And when you get a chance to be part of something good, something real, you don't let it slip away. Jasmine didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and looked out the window. But that night, lying in bed, she replayed his words over and over. Something was happening between them. She felt it in the way Adrian looked at her. Not like she was staff, but like she was someone who mattered. She felt it in the way he lingered after dinner, finding excuses to talk. She felt it in the careful way he touched her shoulder when he passed, brief and fleeting, but electric. And she felt it in herself, in the way her heart raced when he walked into a room, in the way she found herself hoping he'd come home early, in the way she caught herself smiling at the sound of his voice. It was dangerous. It was impossible. He was a billionaire and she was a housekeeper. He had a girlfriend, if Veronica could be called that, and Jasmine had a son to protect. But feelings didn't care about logic. One evening, Jasmine was in the main house's kitchen, helping Sophia prepare dinner. Adrian walked in, loosening his tie after a long day. "Smells amazing," he said, leaning against the counter. Sophia beamed. "Coq-au-vin, your mother's favorite recipe." Adrian's expression flickered with something sad and fond. "She'd love that you still make it." Sophia patted his cheek affectionately and excused herself to check on something in the pantry, leaving Adrian and Jasmine alone. "Long day?" Jasmine asked, drying a pot. "The longest." Adrian ran a hand through his hair. "Sometimes I wonder why I do this. Build companies, make money, sit in boardrooms arguing about profit margins. What's the point?" Jasmine set the pot down. "The point is you're good at it, and you use it to help people. Like the scholarship program at Lincoln Prep. Like giving me and Caleb a chance. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and Jasmine felt the air shift. "You make it sound noble," he said softly. "But the truth is, Jasmine, having you and Caleb here, that's helped me more than you know." Her breath caught. "Adrian?" The door swung open, and Veronica swept in, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. "There you are, darling," she said, sliding her arm through Adrian's possessively. Her eyes flicked to Jasmine with cold triumph. "I've been looking everywhere for you. We have that charity gala tonight, remember? The one I bought us matching outfits for." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I told you I wasn't going. Don't be silly. Everyone expects us. We're the golden couple." Veronica's smile was sharp. "You wouldn't want to disappoint people, would you?" Adrian gently removed her arm. "I'm staying home tonight, Veronica." Her smile faltered. "Why? To have dinner with the help." The room went silent. Sophia reappeared from the pantry, her expression scandalized. "That's enough," Adrian said, his voice dangerously quiet. But Veronica wasn't done. She turned to Jasmine, her eyes blazing. "You think you're special? You think he actually cares about you and your little charity case son?" "You're a housekeeper, Jasmine. That's all you'll ever be. And once Adrian gets bored of playing savior, you'll be right back in whatever hole you crawled out of." Jasmine stood frozen, her face burning with humiliation. Adrian stepped between them, his voice like ice. "Get out!" Veronica blinked. "What? I said get out. Now, Adrian, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You always mean it. I've ignored it for too long, but I won't let you disrespect Jasmine or her son in my home. Leave." "I'm choosing decency over cruelty," Adrian said. "Go!" Veronica grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The kitchen was silent. Sophia cleared her throat awkwardly. "I'll ... go check on the wine." She disappeared, leaving Adrian and Jasmine alone again. "I'm sorry," Adrian said, his voice rough. "You shouldn't have had to hear that." Jasmine shook her head, blinking back tears. "She's right, though. I am just a housekeeper, and Caleb and I don't belong in this world." "Don't say that." Adrian stepped closer, his eyes intense. "You belong here because I want you here, both of you. Not because of some job, but because—" He paused, searching for words. "Because you make this house feel like a home. Because Caleb reminds me why any of this matters. Because when I'm with you both, I feel like the person I was supposed to be." Jasmine's breath hitched. "Adrian, what are you saying?" He reached out, his hand hovering near her face but not quite touching. "I'm saying I don't want you to leave. Ever." Before Jasmine could respond, they heard the front door slam again and raised voices in the foyer. They rushed out to find Veronica shouting at Margaret, who was blocking her path. "I have every right to be here," Veronica shrieked. "Mr. Blackwell asked you to leave," Margaret said firmly. Veronica's wild eyes landed on Adrian. "You're going to regret this. You're going to regret choosing that woman and her bastard son over me. I promise you that." Adrian's face went cold. "Leave. Now. Or I'll call security." Veronica left, but the threat in her voice lingered like poison in the air. That night, Jasmine couldn't sleep. She stood on the porch of the guest house, staring at the lake, Adrian's words echoing in her mind. A knock made her turn. Adrian stood there, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain in a way she'd never seen before. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Too much to think about," she admitted. He joined her on the porch, and they stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "I meant what I said earlier," Adrian said quietly, "about wanting you here, about this feeling like home." Jasmine's heart pounded. "This is all happening so fast. I don't understand why you care so much about us." Adrian turned to face her, and in the moonlight, she could see the vulnerability in his eyes. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. "Something about Caleb, about his past, and about mine." Jasmine's breath stopped. "What do you mean?" But before Adrian could answer, his phone buzzed urgently. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. "We'll talk tomorrow," he said. "I promise. But right now, I need to handle something." He left, and Jasmine was alone with her racing thoughts and the feeling that everything was about to change. Chapter 7. The next morning, Jasmine woke to find Caleb already breakfast in their small kitchen. "Morning, Mom," he said, flipping a pancake with surprising skill. "I figured you could use a break." Jasmine smiled, her heart swelling. "When did you learn to cook?" "Sophia's been teaching me. She says every man should know how to feed himself." Caleb plated the pancakes and set them on the table. "Plus, Mr. Blackwell told me that engineering and cooking aren't that different. They both require precision and creativity." There it was again. Adrian's influence, seeping into every corner of their lives. They ate breakfast together, and Caleb talked excitedly about a physics project he was working on. But Jasmine's mind kept drifting back to last night, to Adrian's unfinished confession on the porch. Something about Caleb, about his past, and about mine. What did that mean? After Caleb left for school, Jasmine went to the main house to start her work. The estate was unusually quiet. Adrian had left early for a business meeting in Manhattan, and most of the staff were occupied with their own tasks. Except Veronica. Jasmine found her in the sitting room, perched on the edge of the sofa like a bird of prey. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her makeup smudged. She'd clearly been crying, but the moment she saw Jasmine, her expression hardened into something cruel. "There she is," Veronica said, her voice dripping with venom. "The woman who's destroying my life." Jasmine stopped in the doorway. "I'm just here to clean, Veronica. Please excuse me." "No!" Veronica stood, blocking her path. "We're going to talk. Woman to woman." Jasmine's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice calm. "There's nothing to talk about." "There's everything to talk about." Veronica's voice rose. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Adrian and I were perfect together. We were planning a future. And then you show up with your sob story and your little orphan boy, and suddenly I'm nothing." "That's not true," Jasmine said quietly. "Whatever is happening between you and Adrian has nothing to do with me." "Liar!" Veronica's hands shook. "He looks at you the way he used to look at me. He smiles at your son the way he never smiled at anything I did. You've poisoned him against me." "I haven't done anything," Jasmine said firmly. "I work here. I take care of my son." "That's all." Veronica stepped closer, her eyes blazing. "You think you're so noble, don't you? Poor little Jasmine, working so hard, sacrificing everything for her son. But you're just a gold digger in disguise. You saw an opportunity, and you took it." Jasmine's patience snapped. "I found my son abandoned in a dumpster when he was 3 days old. I saved his life. I worked 3 jobs to put food on our table. I earned every single thing we have. I don't need to justify myself to you or anyone else." Veronica's face twisted with rage. He was abandoned? So he really is just some throwaway baby? No wonder Adrian feels sorry for you. He collects broken things. Jasmine's hand tightened into a fist, but she forced herself to stay calm. "I'm done with this conversation." She turned to leave, but Veronica's next words stopped her cold. "You should be careful, Jasmine. Men like Adrian get bored easily, and when he does, where will you and your bastard son end up? Right back in the Bronx where you belong." Jasmine didn't respond. She walked away, her heart pounding, Veronica's laughter echoing behind her. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Jasmine cleaned, organized, and tried to ignore the knot of anxiety in her stomach. Veronica's words had cut deeper than she wanted to admit. What was she doing here? Why had Adrian really hired her? And what did he want to tell her about Caleb? That evening, Adrian returned home earlier than expected. He found Jasmine in the library, reorganizing books on the shelves. "Jasmine," he said, his voice gentle. "Can we talk?" She turned, her heart racing. "Of course." He gestured to the chairs by the fireplace, and they sat down across from each other. The room was warm, the fire crackling softly, but Jasmine felt cold inside. "I owe you an explanation," Adrian began, "about why I hired you, about why I've been spending so much time with you and Caleb." Jasmine's throat tightened. "Okay." Adrian leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together. 14 years ago, I was in a relationship with a woman named Natalie. We were young, ambitious, and completely unprepared for what happened next. She got pregnant. Jasmine's breath caught. "Natalie didn't want the baby," Adrian continued, his voice thick with old pain. "She was terrified of being defined by motherhood, of losing herself in my shadow. We fought about it constantly. I begged her to keep the baby, promised I'd do everything to support her dreams, but she couldn't see past her fear." He paused, his jaw working. "She stayed until the baby was born. A boy. Healthy. Perfect. And then, 3 days later, she disappeared. She took our son with her." Jasmine's hands trembled in her lap. "I searched everywhere," Adrian said. "I hired investigators, filed police reports, called hospitals, but she was gone, and so was my son. I spent years wondering if he was alive, if he was okay, if he even knew I existed." Adrian looked up, his eyes meeting Jasmine's. "And then, 3 weeks ago, I walked into Lincoln Prep and saw a 14-year-old boy who looked exactly like Natalie. A boy who was born 14 years ago in February. A boy who was found abandoned in the Bronx 3 days after he was born." The room spun. Jasmine couldn't breathe. "Caleb," she whispered. Adrian nodded. "I think Caleb is my son, Jasmine." Tears spilled down Jasmine's cheeks. No, that's not possible." "It is possible," Adrian said gently. "The timeline matches. The location matches. The way he looks, the way he thinks, it all matches. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure. I didn't want to disrupt your lives on a hunch." Jasmine shook her head, her mind racing. But I'm his mother. I raised him. I saved him." "You are his mother," Adrian said firmly. "Nothing will ever change that. You gave him everything I couldn't. You loved him when no one else would. But Jasmine, if Caleb is my son, then he deserves to know the truth, and I deserve the chance to be his father." Jasmine stood abruptly, pacing the room. "This is insane. You're telling me that the baby I found in that dumpster, the baby I've loved for 14 years, is your son? That his mother just threw him away like garbage?" "I don't know what Natalie did," Adrian said, his voice breaking. "I don't know why she abandoned him, but I need to know the truth. We both do." Jasmine wrapped her arms around herself. "What are you asking me?" "I'm asking for a DNA test," Adrian said quietly. "Just to know for sure. If I'm wrong, I'll never mention this again. But if I'm right—" He stood, moving closer. "If I'm right, then Caleb has a father who loves him and has been searching for him his whole life." Jasmine's mind whirled with 1,000 thoughts. Caleb's birth mother had abandoned him. Adrian was that baby's father, the man who'd been so kind to them, who'd given them a home, who'd treated Caleb like he mattered. He wasn't just being generous. He was looking for his son. "Does Caleb know?" she asked. "No. I wanted to talk to you first. This is your decision too, Jasmine. You're his mother. Nothing changes that." Jasmine closed her eyes. She thought about Caleb, about the way he lit up around Adrian, about how he'd never had a father figure before, about how much he deserved to know where he came from. Then we figure it out together, Adrian said. All three of us. I'm not trying to take him from you, Jasmine. I could never do that. But I want to be part of his life. I want him to know he was never unwanted, that I searched for him, that I would have moved heaven and earth to find him if I'd known where to look. Jasmine wiped her tears. He deserves to know the truth, so you'll do it. She nodded. But we tell him together, before the test. He needs to understand what this means. Thank you, Adrian said, his voice rough with emotion. Thank you for giving me this chance. That night, they sat Caleb down in the guest house living room. He looked between them, confused and a little nervous. What's going on? He asked. Did I do something wrong? No, baby, Jasmine said, taking his hand. You didn't do anything wrong, but Mr. Blackwell and I need to tell you something important. Adrian sat across from them, his hands clasped tightly. Caleb, what do you know about your birth parents? Caleb shrugged. Just that I was abandoned when I was a baby. Mom found me and saved my life. That's all that matters. It does matter, Jasmine said gently. But there's more to the story now. Adrian leaned forward. 14 years ago I had a son. His mother and I weren't ready to be parents, but I wanted to be there for him. 3 days after he was born, she disappeared with him. I've spent 14 years wondering what happened to my son, if he was safe, if he was loved. Caleb's eyes widened. Wait, are you saying... I'm saying I think you might be my son, Adrian said, his voice shaking. The dates match. The location matches. And from the moment I saw you, I felt something I couldn't explain. I think you're the boy I've been searching for all these years. Caleb stared at him, his mouth open. That's impossible. It's not impossible, Jasmine said softly. We can find out for sure with a DNA test, but only if you want to, Caleb. This is your choice. Caleb looked at Adrian, really looked at him, and Jasmine saw something shift in her son's eyes. Recognition, hope, fear. If you're my father, Caleb said slowly, then my birth mother, she threw me away, on purpose? Adrian's face crumpled. I don't know why she did what she did, Caleb. But if she did abandon you, then she made the worst mistake of her life, because you are extraordinary, and I would have given anything to know you were out there. Caleb's eyes filled with tears. I want to know the truth. Then we'll find out, Adrian said. Together. The next morning, they made an appointment for the DNA test at a private medical facility in Manhattan. The process was simple. A cheek swab, some paperwork, and then they'd wait 7 to 10 days for results. But as they left the clinic, none of them noticed the sleek black car parked across the street. Inside, Veronica Sterling sat in the driver's seat, her phone pressed to her ear. I need you to do something for me, she said, her voice cold, and I'm willing to pay whatever it takes. Chapter 8. 7 days, like 7 years. Jasmine threw herself into work, scrubbing floors that were already spotless and reorganizing closets that didn't need it, anything to keep her mind from spinning with what-ifs. What if Adrian was Caleb's father? What if he wasn't? Which answer was she hoping for? Caleb was quieter than usual. He still went to school, still worked on his projects, but there was a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. He asked questions about his birth, about the day Jasmine found him, about whether she'd ever wondered about his parents. I used to imagine them sometimes, Caleb admitted one night over dinner. They were eating in the guest house, just the two of them. I'd make up stories about why they gave me up. Maybe they were too young. Maybe they were in trouble. I never thought—" He paused, his voice cracking. "I never thought someone just threw me away." Jasmine reached across the table and gripped his hand. "Listen to me, Caleb. Whatever happened, whoever made that choice, it doesn't define you. You are loved. You have always been loved. That's what matters." "But what if Mr. Blackwell is my dad?" Caleb's eyes were wet. "What does that mean for us? For you and me? It means you get to have both of us," Jasmine said firmly. "It means you get a father who's been looking for you your whole life. But I'm still your mom, Caleb. Nothing and no one will ever change that." Caleb nodded, but the fear in his eyes didn't fade. Adrian was struggling too. Jasmine could see it in the way he moved through the estate like a ghost, distracted and tense. He worked from home more than usual, and several times she caught him staring out the window toward the guest house, his expression unreadable. One afternoon she found him in his study, surrounded by old photographs. "Sorry," she said, starting to back out. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "No, it's okay," Adrian said, gesturing her inside. "I was just looking through these, trying to remember." Jasmine moved closer and saw photos of a younger Adrian with a beautiful woman. Dark hair, sharp features, confident smile. "Natalie," Jasmine said softly. "Yeah." Adrian picked up one photo, his thumb tracing the woman's face. She was brilliant, ambitious. I fell for her hard. I thought we'd build a life together. He set the photo down. "I was wrong. Do you still love her?" Adrian looked up, surprised by the question. "No, I haven't loved her in years. But I still wonder why. Why she ran. Why she did what she did. If Caleb is my son, then she abandoned him. And I need to understand how someone could do that to their own child." Jasmine sat down across from him. "Fear makes people do terrible things. I've seen it my whole life. People abandoning kids, giving them up, pretending they never existed. It's not about the child. It's about the parent not being strong enough to face what terrifies them." "You were strong enough," Adrian said. "You were 18 years old with nothing. And you chose to love a baby that wasn't even yours." Jasmine's throat tightened. "He was mine the moment I heard him cry." They sat in silence for a moment, and Jasmine felt the weight of everything unsaid between them. The growing connection, the fear of what was coming, the impossible situation they'd found themselves in. "Jasmine," Adrian said quietly, "if the test comes back positive, I want you to know that nothing changes between us. You and Caleb aren't going anywhere. This is your home now, regardless of what the results say. And if the test is negative," Adrian held her gaze, "then you and Caleb still aren't going anywhere, because I meant what I said. You make this place feel like home." Before Jasmine could respond, her phone rang. It was Margaret. "Jasmine, you need to come to the main house right now," the older woman said urgently. "It's Veronica. She's here, and she's causing a scene." Jasmine and Adrian rushed to the main house to find Veronica in the foyer, her designer suitcase beside her, her face flushed with fury. "There you are," she spat when she saw Adrian. "I've been waiting for an hour. What are you doing here, Veronica?" Adrian's voice was ice. "I told you we were done. We're not done until I say we're done," Veronica shot back. "And I'm not leaving until you come to your senses. I've already come to my senses. That's why you need to leave." Veronica's eyes flicked to Jasmine, and her expression twisted with hatred. "This is her fault. She's manipulated you, poisoned you against me. And now you're playing house with some maid and her bastard kid while I'm left with nothing." "Watch your mouth," Adrian warned. But Veronica was on a roll now, her voice rising hysterically. "You're ruining your life, Adrian. That boy isn't yours. He's nobody. Just some abandoned kid she picked up because she wanted a meal ticket. And you're falling for it." "Get out!" Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. Now! No! Veronica grabbed his arm. I love you, Adrian. We're supposed to be together. I've invested a year of my life in this relationship, in us. You can't just throw that away for some fantasy about being a father. Adrian pulled his arm free. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm finally seeing clearly. You've never cared about me, Veronica. You've cared about my money, my status, what I can give you. Well, I'm done giving. Veronica's face crumpled, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. That's not true. I do love you. I've always loved you. Love doesn't look like what you've shown me, Adrian said. Love doesn't insult people I care about. Love doesn't try to control or manipulate. You need to leave, Veronica. And don't come back. For a moment, Veronica just stood there, her chest heaving. Then her expression shifted from desperation to something darker. You're going to regret this, she said, her voice low and venomous. All of you. I promise you that. She grabbed her suitcase and stormed out, slamming the door with such force that the chandelier rattled. Margaret exhaled. Well, that was dramatic. Is she gone for good this time? Jasmine asked. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. I hope so. I should have ended it months ago. But as he said it, Jasmine caught a glimpse of Veronica through the window, sitting in her car. She wasn't leaving. She was making a phone call, her face twisted with rage, and Jasmine felt a cold sense of dread settle in her stomach. 3 days later they got the call. The DNA results were ready. Adrian drove them to the clinic in Manhattan, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Caleb sat in the back seat, silent and pale. Jasmine held her breath the entire way, praying for strength to handle whatever they were about to learn. Dr. Morrison, the geneticist who'd conducted the test, met them in a private office. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. Please, sit down, she said, gesturing to the chairs in front of her desk. They sat. Adrian reached for Jasmine's hand without thinking, and she gripped it tightly. I'll get right to it, Dr. Morrison said, opening a folder. Based on the DNA samples provided, I can confirm with 99.9% certainty that Adrian Blackwell is the biological father of Caleb Carter. The room went silent. Caleb made a small sound, something between a laugh and a sob. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. And Adrian's face crumpled as 14 years of grief and hope and loss came crashing down at once. He's mine, Adrian whispered. He's really mine. Dr. Morrison smiled gently. Yes, Mr. Blackwell. Caleb is your son. Adrian stood abruptly and moved to where Caleb was sitting. He knelt down in front of the boy, his son, and took his hands. Caleb, I am so sorry, Adrian said, his voice breaking. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. I'm sorry you were abandoned. I'm sorry you grew up not knowing how much I wanted you, how much I searched for you. But I'm here now, and if you'll let me, I want to be your father, not to replace what you have with Jasmine, but to add to it, to give you everything I couldn't give you before. Caleb's tears spilled over. You really wanted me? All this time? Every single day, Adrian said. Every single day I wondered where you were, if you were okay. And now I know. You were with the most incredible woman in the world who gave you all the love I couldn't, and I'm so grateful for that. Caleb threw his arms around Adrian, and they held each other tightly, both of them crying. Jasmine watched through her own tears, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. She'd found a baby in a dumpster 14 years ago, and now that baby had found his father. But as they left the clinic, none of them saw the nurse at the front desk, Nurse Patterson, slip away to make a phone call. It's done, she said quietly. The results came back positive. Just like you thought they would. On the other end of the line, Veronica Sterling smiled coldly. Perfect, she said. Now we move to Phase 2. If you're enjoying the story so far, please like and subscribe so that you don't miss another video. Chapter 13. Conferenced everything. Within hours, the story had spread across every major news outlet. Social media exploded with opinions. Some people praised Adrian for being honest, others questioned why it took him so long to find his son, and still others debated whether Jasmine was a gold digger or a saint. But the overwhelming response was support. Thousands of people shared their own adoption stories, their own experiences with absent parents, their own journeys of family reunification. The hashtag #CelebStory started trending, with people celebrating the fact that a child who'd been abandoned had found both his parents. At Lincoln Prep, Caleb's experience was mixed. Some students avoided him, unsure how to act around someone who was suddenly famous, but others rallied around him. His robotics team made T-shirts that said Team Caleb and wore them to their next competition. His teachers went out of their way to make sure he felt supported. One afternoon, Caleb came home with a shy smile on his face. "A girl in my chemistry class asked if I wanted to study together," he told Jasmine. "She said she thinks it's cool that my family fought for each other." Jasmine hugged him tight. "It is cool, and I'm proud of how you're handling all this." Adrian hired a public relations team to manage the media attention. They released carefully crafted statements, arranged interviews with reputable journalists, and made sure the narrative stayed focused on family and hope rather than scandal. But through it all, Veronica remained silent. Too silent. "I don't trust it," Jasmine said one evening. She was in Adrian's study, helping him sort through the mountain of letters and emails they'd received from supporters. "She threatened to destroy us, and now she's just..." "Quiet?" Adrian frowned. "I've been thinking the same thing. It's not like her to give up this easily. Do you think she's planning something?" "I know she is," Adrian said grimly. "I just don't know what." The answer came 3 days later. Adrian received a call from Dr. Morrison at the genetics clinic. Her voice was tight with professional concern. "Mr. Blackwell, I need to speak with you about the DNA test results." "In person. It's urgent." Adrian's stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" "I'd rather not discuss this over the phone. Can you come to the clinic today?" An hour later, Adrian sat in Dr. Morrison's office, his heart pounding. Jasmine had insisted on coming with him, her hand gripping his tightly. Dr. Morrison looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Blackwell, Miss Carter, I'm afraid we've discovered some irregularities with your test results." "What kind of irregularities?" Adrian's voice was sharp. "After your press conference, our clinic received an anonymous tip that one of our staff members may have been bribed to tamper with DNA samples. We conducted an internal investigation and discovered that Nurse Patterson, who processed your samples, made several unusual phone calls and received a large cash deposit the day before your results were released." Jasmine's hand flew to her mouth. "Someone paid her to change the results." "We believe someone attempted to," Dr. Morrison said carefully. "However, we need to verify the integrity of your test. I'm recommending we conduct a second test, just to be absolutely certain." Adrian stood abruptly. "That won't be necessary." Dr. Morrison blinked. "I'm sorry. I said that won't be necessary." Adrian's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "Because I already have the results of 2 other DNA tests, from 2 other facilities." Jasmine stared at him. "What?" Adrian pulled out his phone and showed them both a folder of documents. "I submitted samples to 3 different labs: Mercy General Hospital, St. Luke's Medical Center, and your facility. I did it the same day we came here for the initial test." Dr. Morrison's eyes widened. "You tested at 3 facilities?" "I'm a businessman, Dr. Morrison. I believe in redundancy and verification, especially when something this important is at stake." Adrian's jaw tightened, "and I had a feeling someone might try to interfere." What did the other tests say? Jasmine asked, her voice trembling. Adrian pulled up the documents on his phone. Mercy General, 99.9% probability that I'm Caleb's biological father. St. Luke's, 99.9% probability. Your facility was supposed to confirm the same thing, but I'm guessing Nurse Patterson was paid to alter the results. Dr. Morrison looked horrified. Mr. Blackwell, I am so deeply sorry. If one of our staff members accepted a bribe to tamper with medical results, that's not just unethical, it's criminal. Yes, it is, Adrian said coldly, and I want to know who paid her. Dr. Morrison nodded quickly. We're cooperating fully with the police investigation. Nurse Patterson has been suspended pending the outcome. I want her arrested, Adrian said, today, and I want a full audit of every test she's ever processed. If she did this to us, she may have done it to other families. Of course. We're already working with law enforcement. As they left the clinic, Jasmine was shaking. Adrian, who would do this? Who would pay someone to falsify a DNA test? Adrian's expression was grim. I think we both know exactly who. They drove straight to the estate. Adrian called Paul and told him to have security ready. Then he called his lawyer. I need you to pull every phone record, every financial transaction, every piece of communication between Veronica Sterling and anyone at the genetics clinic for the past month. And I need it today. By evening, they had the evidence. Bank statements showing a $50,000 transfer from one of Veronica's accounts to Nurse Patterson. Text messages arranging a meeting. Security footage from a coffee shop showing them together, exchanging an envelope. Adrian stood in his study, staring at the evidence spread across his desk. His hands shook with rage. She tried to destroy us, he said quietly. She tried to make me think Caleb wasn't my son. She wanted to take away the one thing I've been searching for my entire adult life. Jasmine stood beside him, her own anger simmering. What are we going to do? We're going to end this, Adrian said. Once and for all. He picked up his phone and made a call. Veronica, it's Adrian. We need to talk. Come to the estate tonight. 8 o'clock. Don't be late. When Veronica arrived that evening, she was dressed immaculately as always, her confidence radiating. She clearly thought she'd won, that her plan had worked, that Adrian would be devastated and desperate. She was wrong. Adrian met her in the sitting room. Jasmine was there too, along with Paul and Adrian's lawyer, Michael Chen. The atmosphere was ice cold. Adrian, Veronica purred, gliding into the room. I'm so glad you called. I knew you'd come to your senses eventually. That whole DNA test drama must have been so confusing. Sit down, Veronica, Adrian said flatly. Something in his tone made her hesitate. She sat, her eyes darting between the faces in the room. What's going on? Adrian slid a folder across the coffee table. Open it! Veronica opened the folder, and Jasmine watched the color drain from her face as she saw the bank statements, the text messages, the security footage. What is this? Veronica stammered. Evidence, Adrian said. Evidence that you bribed Nurse Patterson at the genetics clinic to falsify Caleb's DNA test results. You paid her $50,000 to make it look like Caleb wasn't my son. Veronica's hands shook. That's ridiculous. I would never— Stop lying. Adrian's voice cracked like a whip. We have your bank records. We have the text messages. We have footage of you meeting with Patterson 3 days before the test results were released. You paid her to swap Caleb's sample with someone else's DNA. Veronica stood abruptly. You can't prove that. Actually, we can, Michael Chen said calmly, and we already have. Nurse Patterson confessed this afternoon when confronted with the evidence. She's being charged with evidence tampering and fraud, and she named you as the person who bribed her. Veronica's face contorted with fury and fear. She's lying. She's trying to save herself." "The evidence doesn't lie," Adrian said. He stood, towering over her. "You know what your biggest mistake was? Assuming I would only test at one facility. I had 3 DNA tests done, Veronica. 3. The other 2 came back positive. 99.9% probability that Caleb is my son. Your little scheme only affected 1 test." Veronica's legs seemed to give out. She sank back onto the sofa, her perfect composure crumbling. "Why?" Jasmine asked, her voice thick with emotion. "Why would you do this? What did we ever do to you?" Veronica's eyes blazed with hatred. "You took him from me. Adrian was mine. We were supposed to get married, have the perfect life, and then you showed up with your pathetic sob story and your charity case son, and suddenly I was nothing." "You were always nothing to me," Adrian said coldly, "because you have nothing real to offer. No love, no compassion, no integrity, just greed and cruelty." "I loved you," Veronica shrieked. "No, you didn't. You loved what I could give you. And when you realized I wouldn't give you what you wanted, you tried to destroy my family." Adrian's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "That was your second mistake." Michael Chen stepped forward with another folder. "Miss Sterling, you have 2 options. Option 1, we press charges. You'll be arrested for conspiracy, bribery, and evidence tampering. With Nurse Patterson's testimony and the evidence we have, you'll likely face prison time." Veronica's face went white. "Option 2, Michael continued. You sign this agreement. You admit to your actions in writing. You agree to never contact Mr. Blackwell, Ms. Carter, or Caleb again. You leave New York immediately and permanently. In exchange, we won't press charges." "You're blackmailing me," Veronica whispered. "No," Adrian said. "We're giving you a choice. Take responsibility for what you've done and disappear, or face the legal consequences." Veronica stared at the agreement, her hands trembling. For a moment, Jasmine almost felt sorry for her. "Almost? What about my reputation?" Veronica asked. "My career. My life here." "You should have thought about that before you tried to destroy mine," Adrian said without sympathy. Veronica grabbed a pen and signed the agreement with shaking hands. Tears streamed down her face, smearing her perfect makeup. "I hope you're happy," she spat at Jasmine. "I hope you enjoy your little fairy tale. But it won't last. Nothing ever does." "Get out," Adrian said. "You have 24 hours to leave the state. If I ever see you again, the deal is off, and you go to prison." Veronica stood, clutching her purse. She looked at Adrian one last time, her expression a mixture of hatred and heartbreak. Then she walked out, her heels clicking on the marble floor for the last time. The room was silent after she left. Jasmine exhaled shakily. "It's really over?" "It's over," Adrian confirmed. He pulled her into his arms, and she let herself collapse against him, all the fear and tension of the past weeks finally releasing. "Thank you," she whispered, "for protecting us, for being smart enough to see this coming." "I told you," Adrian said softly, "I will always protect you and Caleb. Always." That night, they told Caleb everything. About Veronica's scheme, about the 3 DNA tests, about how Adrian had outsmarted her attempt to tear their family apart. Caleb listened quietly, his eyes wide. When they finished, he said, "So you knew she might try something. That's why you did 3 tests." "I didn't know for certain," Adrian said, "but I suspected, and I wasn't going to risk losing you again because someone wanted to play games." Caleb threw his arms around Adrian. "You're the best dad ever." Adrian's eyes filled with tears. "And you're the best son I could have ever hoped for." Later, after Caleb had gone to bed, Adrian and Jasmine sat on the porch of the guest house, watching the stars reflect on the lake. "I can't believe it's really over," Jasmine said. "No more threats. No more schemes. No more Veronica, Adrian added with satisfaction. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Adrian said, "Jasmine, there's something I need to tell you." She turned to him, her heart skipping. "What?" "These past few months, getting to know you and Caleb, building this family, it's been the best time of my life. And somewhere along the way, I realized something." He took her hand. "I'm in love with you." Jasmine's breath caught. "Adrian, I know the timing might seem fast," he continued. "I know we've been through a lot, but when I think about my future, I can't imagine it without you. Not as Caleb's mother, not as my employee, but as my partner. In everything." Tears spilled down Jasmine's cheeks. "I love you too. I've been so scared to admit it because I didn't think someone like you could want someone like me." "Someone like you?" Adrian cupped her face gently. "Someone kind, strong, selfless, and beautiful. Jasmine, you're everything I've ever wanted and didn't know I needed." He kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. And for the first time in 14 years, everything felt right. 6 months later, the morning of the adoption hearing dawned bright and clear. Jasmine stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, not the guest house anymore, but the master bedroom in the main house, which she now shared with Adrian, and smoothed down her dress. It was a simple navy sheath dress, elegant but not flashy, the same style she'd worn to the press conference all those months ago. But this time, she wore something new, a diamond ring on her left hand. Adrian appeared in the doorway, already dressed in a charcoal suit. "You look beautiful." Jasmine smiled. "I'm nervous." "Don't be. This is just a formality. Judge Williams already said she's approving the adoption." "I know, but still." Jasmine turned to face him. "This makes it official. You'll legally be Caleb's father." "I've been his father since the moment I found him," Adrian said. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her. "But yes, today makes it official in the eyes of the law. And I couldn't be happier." A knock on the door interrupted them. Caleb poked his head in, grinning. "Are you guys ready? We're going to be late to my own adoption if you keep making heart eyes at each other." They laughed. Caleb had grown in the past 6 months. Not just physically, though he'd shot up another 2 inches, and now stood almost as tall as Adrian, but emotionally. He was more confident, more settled. He still had his quiet moments, still sometimes woke from nightmares about being alone. But now he had 2 parents who would rush to his room at 3 a.m. and remind him he was loved, wanted, and safe. The courthouse in Lower Manhattan was less intimidating than Jasmine had imagined. Judge Williams was a warm woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She reviewed the paperwork, asked Caleb a few questions about whether he understood what was happening, and whether this was what he wanted, and then smiled. "It's rare that I get to preside over a case this joyful," Judge Williams said. "Mr. Blackwell, you've been searching for your son for 14 years. Miss Carter, you saved that son's life and raised him with love and dedication. And Caleb, you've been blessed with not 1 but 2 parents who would move heaven and earth for you." She signed the final papers. "By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I hereby grant this petition for adoption. Adrian Blackwell, you are now legally recognized as Caleb Carter Blackwell's father, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails." Caleb's full name was now Caleb Carter Blackwell, keeping Carter as a middle name to honor Jasmine. They celebrated with lunch at Caleb's favorite restaurant, a small Italian place in Brooklyn that made the best lasagna in the city. Caleb ate 3 plates and declared it the best day of my entire life. "Better than when I told you I was your dad?" Adrian teased. "Tied," Caleb said with a grin. "It's tied." Over the following weeks, life settled into a beautiful routine. Caleb thrived at Lincoln Prep. He'd won 2nd place in the Siemens competition with his solar-powered water filtration system, which had earned him scholarship offers from MIT, Stanford, and Caleb Tech. Adrian had been so proud he'd cried during the awards ceremony. Jasmine had transitioned from housekeeper to something else entirely. Adrian's partner in running the Blackwell Foundation, which they'd started together. The foundation focused on helping single parents, funding adoption services, and supporting foster children aging out of the system. Jasmine's lived experience made her invaluable in shaping the foundation's mission and programs. They'd helped over 200 families in just 6 months. Margaret, who'd watched everything unfold, cornered Jasmine in the kitchen one morning. "I knew it," the older woman said with satisfaction. "I told you he was different around you. I've never seen Mr. Adrian this happy. Not once in 32 years. Thank you for believing in us," Jasmine said, hugging her. "Even when it seemed impossible. Love is never impossible, dear. It just takes courage." Adrian proposed officially 3 months after Veronica's departure. He did it simply, at home, with just the 3 of them. They were having dinner on the porch when he got down on one knee. "Jasmine Carter, you saved my son. You saved me. Will you marry me?" Caleb whooped. "Say yes, Mom. Say yes." Jasmine laughed through her tears. Yes, of course, yes." They were married in a small ceremony at the estate 6 months later. Caleb walked Jasmine down the aisle. Margaret cried. Sophia made a 5-tier cake, and when Adrian kissed his bride, Caleb shouted, "Finally! Can we eat now?" The press covered the wedding, but this time the narrative was different. This time it was a love story, a family reunited, a second chance at happiness. 1 year after Adrian first saw Caleb at Lincoln Prep, they stood together in the main house, looking at a photo wall Jasmine had created. It chronicled their journey, from Jasmine finding baby Caleb in that alley 14 years ago, to Caleb's adoption papers, to their first family dinner, to the press conference, to the wedding photos. "Look how far we've come," Jasmine said softly. "Look how far we still have to go," Adrian countered, pulling her close. "I can't wait to see what the future holds." Caleb stood beside them, studying the photos. "You know what's crazy? If Mom hadn't found me that night, if she'd just walked past that alley, none of this would have happened. I'd be—" He trailed off, not wanting to finish. "But I didn't walk past," Jasmine said firmly. "I heard you, and I chose to act. And that choice changed all our lives." "That's the thing about choices," Adrian said, looking at both of them. "The smallest decision can lead to the biggest changes. Jasmine chose to save you. I chose to look for you. You chose to let us both be part of your life. And now we're here. Together. Where we always belonged," Caleb added. They stood there, the 3 of them, looking at their story captured in photographs and memories. A homeless woman who became a mother. A father who never stopped searching. A boy who found his family. Outside, the sun set over the lake, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The estate that had once felt empty now overflowed with life, laughter, and love. It hadn't been easy. They'd faced threats, lies, and schemes. They'd endured public scrutiny and private doubts. But they'd faced it all together. And in the end, that made all the difference. Because family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who choose you, who fight for you, who refuse to give up on you even when the world says to walk away. And that's exactly what they'd done for each other. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed Caleb, Jasmine, and Adrian's journey from heartbreak to healing, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more inspiring stories like this one. Drop a comment below and let us know what you thought. Did the story move you? What was your favorite moment? We love hearing from you. Remember, every story of second chances, perseverance, and unconditional love reminds us that it's never too late to find where we belong. We'll see you in the next video with another incredible tale. Until then, take care and never stop believing in the power of family.